Hello and welcome to the Swan Song Podcast. My name is Ben Buddy Slack, and I'm the founder of the Swan Song Project and the host of this podcast. The Swan Song Project is a charity. We're based here in Leeds, England, and we help people who are facing the end of their lives or dealing with a bereavement to write and record an original song. We believe in celebrating lives, making memories, and leaving legacies. If you'd like to find out more about the charity, you can visit our website, which is swansongproject.co.uk. Podcast features songwriters. Every episode I have a different songwriter on, and I ask them to share with us one of their songs. We have a chat about how they wrote it. I ask them to share a songwriting tip, and I also ask them for a song that's meaningful to them in some way related to bereavement. This episode features Danny Wilson, who's just released his seventh album with his band Danny and the Champions of the World. The album's called You Are Not a Stranger Here. It's a really great album, really interesting stuff. And this is a really fun conversation. I really enjoyed talking to Dan. Again, he's another guest who shares lots of similar influences to me. And I got to share something about my one of my favorite collections, which was really nice for me to talk about in the podcast. I think you're going to really enjoy this episode and find it really interesting. If you do, please like, share, and subscribe to the podcast. We've got lots more great guests coming up that you're not going to want to miss. But without further ado, here is Danny Wilson on the Swan Song Podcast. Enjoy. Okay, today I'm here with Danny Wilson. Thanks for joining me, Danny.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
I'm really looking forward to talking to you. So this is the Swan Song Podcast. For anybody who's new to the show, we do it in three parts. First, we're going to have one of Danny's songs, and we're going to talk about how he wrote it. Then in section 2, I'm going to ask Danny for a songwriting tip. And in section 3, we're going to talk about a song that's meaningful to Danny in some way related to bereavement. So over to you, Danny. Which song of yours have you chosen to speak to us about today?
I've chosen a song from the latest Danny and the Champions of the World record. The album's called You Are Not a Stranger Here, and the song is called I'm in Love.
Japanese book about Barbara Streisand, porcelain look through cat's eyes, and Liberty Blake, warrior on the wall of mine, Tommy's weights, lights on the line. I'm in love, I'm in love, I'm in love, I'm in love. Watches the watchman wait to dust my broom. Hey, Friedlander, nudie suit, Miracle Max, talk about true love, big fish catch, the poetics of space. I'm in love, I'm in love, I'm in love, I'm in love. Hidden amongst these things is a photograph of us.
Okay, brilliant. So yeah, that was I'm in Love. Yeah, it's a great song, Danny. It's very yeah, it really kind of drew me in when I first listened to it. Um, and on
Mm.
the album, it comes after an interlude, doesn't it? There's like a musical interlude, and then it goes straight into the song. Um, yeah, what can you
Yeah,
tell us
yeah.
about
There's a
what?
bunch of interludes on the album.
Yeah,
The album,
oh,
the album's got a bunch of sort of it's sort of. It sounds crazy saying this. It's certainly coming out of my mouth, but it's a sort of. The album has a loose sort of concept. So there are some um, in, instrumental interludes in the album that are kind of part of a narrative, I guess. And I say that it sounds crazy coming out of my mouth because I think we're known for, if at all, for being, kind of roots rock or Americana type music, So concept albums and instrumental interludes don't generally come into our world very often, but it's nice. Yeah, it's good. It was good to do something like that. Weirdly, the song "I'm in Love," I'm actually sat as we speak. I'm sat with the dog on my bed, and to my left is a big shelving unit, and it has loads of stuff. And I think that over the years we've been told that stuff is kind of that we don't need stuff. Minimalism has become quite fashionable, and feng shui was certainly before feng shui books were at every car boot sale stall. They were in everybody's houses. Um, but I'm not that guy by any stretch of the imagination. I love stuff. I love collecting trinkets and souvenirs and just weird shit. I go to charity shop. I'm always looking for something. Do you know what I mean?
mm,
Whatever it is, just something that is. And the interesting thing is, over the years, some of those weird little things that you buy or find or swap or whatever, wherever or get given or whatever, some of them become really quite important. They tell your story. So the song "I'm in Love" is about my um, home, my environment, the people I'm in love with. But it's also that the stuff that I've kind of gathered and collected as some of it's going to be really important to me. Um, so I'm not about to do a car boot sale stall anytime soon with any of this stuff. But literally, it's so route one songwriting. It's my stuff. So I'm literally looking. The first line in the song is a Japanese book about Barbara Streisand, and I'm looking at that book now. It talks in the book about it. It in the song, it's all about stuff and your home, and the album's very much about home and your environment and our place in the world, and from like micro to macro in a weird sort of way. But um, the song is about stuff, and then the bridge, which is quite musically, is quite odd for me. I wrote the song in Dadgad, and I find that it writing in different tunings and things like that can sometimes jolt you out of your habitual moves, if you know what I mean. So
mm,
um, writing in Dadgad or different tunings, I can use chords. I mean, I'm not a brilliant guitar player. I'm someone who can accompany themselves. So it allows you to come up with sort of chords or phrases or patterns that you just I wouldn't normally come up with, so by accident, by just playing around. But the bridge in the song brings it back to the people, and I'm literally looking at this photo now. It's a picture of me and my wife standing in my mum and dad's back garden when we were about 8 years old. And yeah, it's just a weird. The song is literally just describing the things in a place that I love, that I share with the people I love. So that's it. There's not a lot more to it, but it's definitely lyrically, it's quite different to a lot of songs. It doesn't really tell a story unless you really get into understanding what it's about, really. But people like it. It's catchy
Mm.
in that way, lyrically. But
Yeah.
it's good.
Yeah, it is good. And I think it's one of those songs where, yeah, it's not telling a straight narrative, but it's giving you enough
No,
that you can make your own stories out of it. Like, so I was, obviously the pictures, like, I mean, I my first guess would probably be that it would be your wife or be a partner in some way, but then I was also like, well,
yeah,
it could be anyone in that picture. It could be it could be a
could
parent,
be.
it could
Yeah,
be an old friend, it could be your dog. So it's like that could be anything. And then like
that's
you
right.
can,
Yeah,
and all the things that you mention, like, it could be that they're random things, or it could be that they all have something in the story. So when you're listening to it, you could be like, "Oh, I wonder if that means something about what's going on."
yeah,
So I think it's a really
yeah.
good
Well,
way of.
they are souvenirs in a story that
Mm,
have been gathered over years. We've lived in this place for 18 years, and our kids have grown up here, and a lot of these things that are sat on the shelf have been sitting in the same place and probably untaken out, unhandled for about that length of time.
yeah,
But it's important that they're there.
yeah. One of the songs that it reminds me of, in terms of like the style of songwriting, I guess, is "You're Missing" by Springsteen. Do you know that one, Off the Rising? Um,
Yeah, yeah. I'm a huge
where
Springsteen fan. Love it.
Yeah, yeah, likewise. But where that one, so that one's obviously about someone who's been lost, but it's coffee
Yeah,
cups on the counter, jackets. It's describing the place, and then but you're missing. Whereas
yeah,
yours is describing the place, and it's like then, and here's the picture of us. And I'm sure there's other examples where I've thought before where it's kind of that framework, I guess, that works really well. Of here's a description of where we are, and then here's the heart at the middle of it.
yeah. I think Neil Finn does it a bit in a few songs over the years. Bruce can definitely tell a story
Mm.
by describing a place.
Yeah,
Lots of songs are like that, aren't they? I think Guy Clark has a song about his favourite
my
shirt.
favorite picture of you.
Things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, yes, right, yeah. Um, yeah, it's interesting. I mean, we are definitely sort of told that stuff is just stuff and it's not important. Like that. What one thing would you say from a burning building type sort of
Mm.
question? As if enjoying stuff or collecting stuff or the memories being held within trinkets is a bad thing, but I think it's a good thing.
Yeah, I agree. I'm gonna take a moment to just distract from the songwriting because this is something I don't get to share very often with people, but I think you'll appreciate it. So this is my favorite collection is I collect novelty pens. So this is
Brilliant,
one
lovely,
mug full of them, and but that's my general novelty pen collection. What I'm really into is mug two, which is novelty pens from Castle gift shops. So I'm a big fan of the
brilliant.
Castle, and but so that's my real
Yeah,
favorite thing is Castle gift shop pens. But I do like general novelty pens. Um, but yeah, that's my
um,
that's my like
when
little
when
yeah,
we're on when we're on tour, we often stop at castles,
great, aren't they?
and I'll pick you up a pen from somewhere that you
Oh,
haven't been.
nice. Oh, I appreciate that. My aim is to get
Charity shops and castles.
yeah, yeah, great
Love
places.
it.
Great, yeah.
Yeah, oh God, love it. Yeah.
Do you have a favorite castle?
No. We went up to Northumberland a few years ago, and to Alnwick,
Mm.
and there's an amazing castle there, which is really beautiful. Actually, I think it might even feature in one of the Harry Potter films or something
Yeah, I
like
think it does.
that. Yeah, it's interesting because I was talking about. I live in the suburbs of South London, and there's a place not far from here called Cheam, which is where Hancock's Half Hour was set. Funnily enough, but there was a palace there called Nonsuch, and I think it was Henry VIII's palace. It doesn't exist anymore. Don't go there; it's not there anymore. Um, but it was named after the fact that there was no such palace in the world that was as grand or as beautiful as this one, and the hunting ground. I think it was a hunting sort of palace, but Nonsuch. Yeah, there's a park up there, Nonsuch Palace. Yeah. Anyway, it's the
Nice.
palace that I've never seen, but coulda, shoulda, woulda.
Yeah. Yeah. Good stuff. Well, we'll get back to the songwriting stuff now. Um, one of the questions I had about I'm in Love
Yeah.
was that did you have the concept of where you were going with the song when you started writing, or did you just start writing it from what you were seeing? Was question one. And question two is did you did how naturally did the things fit together lyrically? You know, when you did you write down everything you could see and then choose the one, the ones that shaped well to be sung, or was it just worked out that what you saw you sang well?
Um, I specifically picked out things that I knew I wanted to use. I didn't write down loads of things and choose the bits that sounded the best.
Mm.
There's references to all sorts of things in there. There's references to The Princess Bride, which is a film and a book that I absolutely love. There's a reference to Big Fish, which is another film I love. Um, there's references to a picture that's up on the wall by Peter Blake, which is a picture of his daughter wearing a kimono. um, yeah, no, I really like splurge writing lyrics and then editing a
Mm.
lot. I really love that editing bit. Just get an idea down. But that song actually, I didn't wasn't heavily edited. It was pretty straightforward. I think I was sat in my room playing the guitar, and it's almost an exercise, isn't it? But just once I had that first line, um, it felt like something worth pursuing.
Mm.
I love writing songs. I don't. It's not something that I really labour over particularly. If it's no good, it's no good. Doesn't matter.
Yeah. So is it quite natural for you then? Do you just write regularly as like something that you just enjoy doing and then see what comes of it and use the ones which you like the best? Or do you have like a I'm going to sit down and write a new album now approach to it?
It can be quite project based,
Mm.
partly because it always takes a lot of work, doesn't it? Getting a record together and getting um, writing the songs, recording the songs, rehearsing the band, playing gigs, doing um, as much as you can to sort of push that elephant up the stairs. Um, so sometimes the sort of practical stuff can take over from the purely creative stuff. But I'm
Mm.
always writing down little notes. That's for me. That's the best way. Um, and I always recognise what I was on about. If you know what I mean. Like I said to you earlier, I'm very not technical. I don't have any technology or tools to write or record things. Um, I just sing them into the phone. You know what I mean? So, and I find that that's quite creative. It
Mm.
sounds the opposite of creative, but actually, I find it. I think I know lots of people who write in different ways, but I know people who almost have built the track with drums and they know what the bass is doing and that before the lyrics are really finished or written. And that sounds like really good fun. But I personally, melody and chords is easy. The hard bit is having something worth saying or worth singing. There's lots of song lyrics. Do you know what I mean? It's just stuff, isn't it? It doesn't mean anything unless it's got some sort of authenticity to you, especially you first and foremost. Um, so yeah, I quite often like now the latest Danny and the Champs album came out in October, and now I'm starting to feel like my brain has enough space in it to start working on something else.
Mm.
I've already recorded the next solo record, so that's done.
Oh, well.
Uh, and yeah, I kind of should stop doing it really, but I've kind of got probably I've also recorded a an acoustic record of songs from Grand Drive, so songs from probably 1995 to now. My favourite songs that I've written. We've recorded about 25 songs, and that will come out at some point, like a songbook type record. It sounds quite navel-gazing. It sounds a bit self-important, but when you make a record, or sometimes it sounds great at the time in that, but maybe you didn't need a bagpipe solo on it. Do you know what I mean? Or you don't
always need a bagpipe solo.
Hear it. You're right. I should use a different example. But the way you present it at the time isn't necessarily the way that you want to keep presenting it. So it's quite nice to strip them away and see how they sound 20 years later or something like that. So that's done as well. But yeah, so I've got some headspace to start writing some more songs. I'm thinking what tends to happen, I start thinking about it and kind of gathering ideas and thinking in my head, so what how do I want the next one to be? I mean, this one's been an interesting thing because lyrically I'm really happy with it, even though it is quite sad. It's very personal. It's quite a sad record, which is quite odd because it doesn't always chime with the way that my personality, like the way that I act or am with people. So a few people have said to my wife, is Danny okay? But it's good. I feel like it's a step somewhere else songwriting. I don't want to. There's no point in just keep writing the same songs.
Yeah.
So I feel like I'm really interested in what the next one's going to be, and it won't just be the first 10 songs I write. It's going to be quite purposeful.
Yeah. And so you were saying then about you start getting ideas at the start of a project. Is that like individual song ideas, or is that like I want to do an album that's explores this kind of theme or tells this kind of story or has this type of song? So what's the kind of initial ideas like?
It's song ideas. It'll be lyrics, just a sentence. The latest record, the working title for it, right up to probably a few months before it was finished, was called The Poetics of Space, which is the title of one of the interludes. But and that was a book by a guy called Gaston Bachelard, who was a French philosopher, and it's a book about your environment. How you surround yourself, your home, your things. A bit like the song "I'm in Love." It really chimes with that. So that the Poetics of Space was a really, really brilliant kind of scaffolding to be making the record. It said I didn't think it was necessarily going to be the title, but it was the scaffolding within which we sort of built the record. And then we called it something else at the last minute. Which I'm thrilled with. But yeah, the ideas are song ideas, but there'll be one that is a catalyst for everything else. I think that I know when an album is more than a clutch of songs, when there's a particular moment, there's a song where you go, okay, I know this is it. This is where we're going with this. And until that song happens, I don't feel like I'm writing an album. I'm just writing some songs.
And then is there are the songs that come out when you're writing like that don't fit with some of the other ones? Do you get that sometimes with?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, without a doubt. And they're not necessarily not good songs. They're just not in that group,
Yeah.
So when we started recording this album, I had a solo album out last year or the year before called Another Place, and a few of the songs that were going to be on this record but didn't really quite fit it in my head are on that record instead. So they don't get wasted. A few songs go by the wayside, but when you're writing it if it's not really there. It's just like going for a jog rather than being in a race, if you know what I mean. They're just flexing. I
Yeah.
try not to waste too much time on stuff that I don't love.
Yeah. Um, how do you choose which songs you're going to do with the band and which songs you're going to put on a solo album?
Um, Sometimes it's just timing. Sometimes it's just doesn't fit in a loose concept of how I think it or what sort of record it's going to be. Um, the 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 last album and the new one are both produced by a young guy down in Lewis in Sussex called Hamish Benjamin, and he has, I would say, his aesthetic and his taste is further left field than mine. Not in terms of listening, but in terms of instinct. So it's quite interesting to give him songs, and he pretty much at times quite shockingly deconstructs them, and I really love that. It's a
Mm.
really weird thing but I've done enough and written enough and had enough records out for that to be exciting rather than scary.
Mm.
And I don't have to put it out. You know, if I don't like it, no one's going to hear it. But it's really thrilling for someone to treat your songs or your ideas with what can feel like, in a bizarre sort of way, total irreverence. Um, and that's quite a healthy thing, I think. So sometimes the songs are songs that I would do with him or on a solo record are songs that I think might just lend themselves to being really fucked around with,
Mm.
and I quite like that idea.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I always found that
It's
interesting,
interesting.
and particularly with bands where like so for what I know of Danny and the Champions of the World, you've done quite a range of songs. Like you're not a band, you're not AC/DC where it's like every album's basically the same. And 'cause I remember having this with I'm a big Nick Cave fan, and when Nick Cave did Grinder Man, I don't know if you remember Grinder Man was like it was
Yeah,
basically just a small version of the Bad Seeds. It was him and three of the Bad Seeds rather than the full big band. But him saying at the time that he just he felt restricted by the Bad Seeds. And I was like, but they were like one of the most eclectic bands I know. Like, how could he feel restricted by a band that put so many different things out? But as I've got older, I do kind of understand it more now. If there's something about
yeah,
just, there's certain dynamics that form with bands, even bands that are very eclectic, where then sometimes you just need a different vehicle to release something.
yeah. I mean, it's like, are you a fan of Wilco?
Yes, not massively, but what I know I like, but I keep meaning to listen to more.
Well, Jeff Tweedy puts out solo records. He's done a few in the last few years, and I can't quite tell how he chooses material for the band as opposed to the solo stuff.
Mm.
I get the impression that it might be, like I said, timing. It might be that just fancied, you know, having a wander in the woods on his own rather than with his mates. It just like that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Uh, um, but if you don't know Wilco, he's a really interesting songwriter. He'd be
I've
interesting to talk to.
Yeah, I'd love to. Yeah,
Um,
I've read one of his
he,
books. 'Cause he's written, I think he's written a couple of books about
yeah,
songwriting, hasn't he? But I've read one of them anyway, which was really good.
yeah, it's called How to Write a Song. That one,
Mm.
I think. His autobiography, or a sort of memoir, which is called, I think, let's
But
let's go so we can get back, or something
that
like that.
that's the one I've read.
It's a
Yeah.
brilliant. Oh man, it's a great book. And then he
Mm.
wrote a book about, literally about songwriting and the process that he follows. I think it's called How to Write a Song. And then he's written another book recently about his favorite songs, or not favorite songs, songs that had an impact on him in some way or other. He's a really nice writer. He's a
Mm.
brilliant songwriter, but he, at, at some point in his career, and I think it happens to lots of people. And the song "I'm in Love," I think, is an example of this, where you're trying to say maybe you can get into a habit of say writing love songs or writing the same song really over and over again with just slightly different words or a different approach. But he started getting into, I think, the sort of lyrics, cut up lyrics, and just keeping things interesting. And as a result, it's got some really they're moving songs, but they're quite obtuse. They're quite sort of avant-garde, but there's something really human about them, and I think that's fascinating. Obviously, Bowie or Eno and people who use that, their music, if you're good at it, retains this real emotional sort of impact, but quite often it's difficult to decipher what's actually being talked about, but that's just someone's humanity coming through, isn't it? In and the authenticity in what they do.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, very interesting.
It is fascinating.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. One of the things that I'm fascinated by with songwriting is, just met lots and lots of musicians and songwriters over the years, and I tend to find you get people who are very musically. I mean, and pretty much all songwriters are both, but some people who are very musically driven and find lyrics difficult and find it hard to remember lyrics, and other people who are very lyrical, don't necessarily find the music hard, but like are driven by story and by words, and the music kind of is there to accompany the words. And other people who it's like the words don't really matter to me, are more about the tune and the feel of the music. And what I've always thought, like if I was clever and like someone who could do like research to know what's going on in there, if there's like a brain difference where some people have this music part and some people have more of the word part. I'd love to know if there is something behind it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I can pretty much pinpoint. I think I made a decision. In my head, I did. It might be just apologising to myself for not knuckling down, but I feel like, and I believe that I made a choice when I was maybe your late teens that I wanted to be a songwriter, and as a result, my guitar playing is accompanying rather than virtuoso. I can play. I'm quite music. I'm instinctive musically, but I don't. I mean, like I was saying earlier, I use tunings and stuff like that, and capos a lot and stuff. And I don't. The guys are like, "What's the chords?" And I'm like, I have no idea. You're just gonna have to work it out for yourself. I don't know what it's called.
Yeah.
Which I like. It
Yeah.
doesn't matter what it's called, does it really?
As long as it sounds good, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I don't care. Yeah.
Yeah. And I was thinking that
But I don't.
sorry.
Go on.
Like for me, I've always been like, again, like I'm an okay guitar player, but I'm not a great guitar player. But again, I've always pushed more towards telling better stories and finding more interesting things to say. Whereas my musicianship has I feel like it's kind of like stalled quite a while ago. Where I've tried to be like, well, I'm going to like really progress my guitar playing or really progress my singing, and I can't get myself motivated to be able to do something fancier. So I feel
It's
like,
definitely,
yeah,
but it's clearly not the thing that's pulling you towards music, is it? What you actually want, what you're craving in music, or what draws you to it, is you want to communicate with something to people, and that
mm,
isn't. I have an interesting relationship with certain artists who I can appreciate but do not understand at all. And
mm,
Frank Zappa is one of them, where I feel like the music's astonishing, but there's so much humor in the songs and stuff, and quite often quite base sort of humor. I just don't know what's the point of all that scaffolding if that's what you're going to put up. Like, it's just stupid. But I can appreciate the playing and everything. But I just don't know why these virtuoso musicians would waste their time on something that is complete nonsense. Whereas John Prine or Warren Zevon or Randy Newman can be very funny, but in a really human, moving way. Do you know what I mean? Like one of John Prine's more famous songs, "Speed of the Sound of Loneliness," where he says, "You come home late, you come home early, you come home straight, you come home curly." It makes perfect sense to me. It's not laugh out loud, but it's kind of silly, but it's lovely. Whereas Zappa singing about wet t-shirt competitions or something, I was just like, oh, God, what's the point of all this?
Yeah.
Maybe I'll get it one day.
Yeah. Funny, Zappa was the person who came to mind when you started that sentence for me as well. I've had that same experience with Zappa where I've never quite, never, even though like loads of people whose music, we have sort of similar tastes that love Zappa, and again, I've just never really clicked for those similar reasons.
Yeah,
Do you remember what it was when you?
I
Sorry.
have lots of friends who love it.
Yeah.
No, go on. I was just saying I've got lots of friends who love that song.
Yeah.
I'm slightly bemused, but
Do you remember what it was that drew you when you said then that you remember as a teenager deciding you wanted to be a songwriter? Do you remember what it was that you wanted to do by being a songwriter? Do you remember what it was that drew you into the craft?
when I my dad is a massive music fan, and he is a huge Springsteen and Tom Waits kind of fan. He likes all sorts of music. He left school when he was 12, and one of his jobs was his mum and dad ran a milk bar in Melbourne, and he one of his jobs was to fill the jukebox with would have been probably 78 then even, but he loves doo wop and R&B music, and then through the 60s there's nothing psychedelic in his tastes at all, and there's nothing even beat groupie. He doesn't. The Beatles were never played in my house when I was a kid, but loads of sort of Dion, the Belmonts, and Frankie Lyman, and loads of doo wop and soul music, and then as if like up to the early 60s, and then suddenly everything else he likes is early 70s singer-songwriter stuff. So it's really weird. There's like, unless it was sort of soul music or Tamla, the 60s almost didn't happen for them. It's really weird. Their wedding photos, they got married in 68, and their wedding photos look like a Brat Pack thing. Like there's 50s cars, and they all look like bloody Dean Martin. It's great, but yeah. So he played music all the time, and I'm the middle of 5 kids, and we would go on these mad holidays where we'd just jump in the car, nothing was booked, and we'd just go camping, and he'd just drive around, like get the ferry to France. We'd just drive around France, not knowing where we were staying ever. And he'd had these Springsteen bootlegs in the car, and from December 1978 at Winterland, and when we were all arguing in the car, he'd say, "Who wants to hear a guitar solo?" And we'd all say, "Yay!" And he'd play "Prove It All Night," and I can picture Bruce like dropping down to his knees and playing this amazing guitar solo on his Telecaster. And that was just that particular group of cassettes that he used to play in the car are the romance in it, the way that Bruce made it feel so special and so amazing, is what I wanted to do. I had no idea. I was a kid from, with Australian parents from Sutton. It's very not Thunder Road, but I wanted to do my Thunder Road. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
and I've tried many times. But there's a run of songs on that Winterland bootleg where I love this, and I love it. Trying to do it live with the band, where he does something like Jungle Land, Thunder Road, a real bunch of slow romantic songs of his. He does them all in a row. And whereas most bands, especially when you're sort of growing up and you're trying to write a set list, how do you build a show? and go, oh, do a slow one here, and then but then you don't want to make it too boring. So yeah, but I love the way that he just sat in a moment for bloody half an hour, and the way he talks to the audience, and he says on that tape, I'm sure he says it on a few things during that year, because they did a number of radio broadcast gigs that were broadcast, and he says this song's for everyone back home in Asbury Park who one day will hear this through the magic of bootlegging. And I remember just the way he spoke and everything about it was just so inspiring. It's just magic. And as a result, I've kind of possibly, done a few suburban kind of attempts at that, trying to recreate that magic, But that was it.
Yeah.
I knew. But I would have been about 10 then. I knew.
Yeah.
I knew that was like, nothing made me feel like that.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah. Amazing. And yeah, I echo a lot of that same story. A little bit later for me, it was, and funny enough, you're saying Bruce. So yeah, Bruce was. I had a similar thing of growing up listening to Bruce. And when I got into songwriting, I've got a really clear memory of going through my dad's CD wallets, listening to them all, and then like when you reckon, like obviously heard the songs around the house, but I put it on, me like, oh, he did this one as well. This song's by the same guy. And being like, what? So he's written all these ones, and he wrote that, and oh, damn.
Yeah.
But then, funny enough,
he's pretty good.
Well, he's done all right, hasn't he? Like, and then I remember then like getting getting hooked into the stories. And I'm like, oh, what's this one about? And then just listening to it over and over again, and be like, oh, it's working out the stories. But funnily, you saying "Prove It All Night" guitar solo. That's the reason I got electric guitar. Originally, when I just wanted to play acoustic guitar, and then but for me, it was the Live in New York DVD. And the Prove It All Night guitar solo on that, I was like, I want to do that now. Prove It All Night and the Murder Incorporated guitar solos, Bruce does. And funnily enough, that's exactly the reason why I got into it as well. I wanted to play rock music, so
yeah.
But
it's interesting because Bruce is a great guitar player, but it's quite untutored, isn't it? He's got his style, and it's all kind of grit and it's all passion, but he's not a sophisticated guitar player.
No.
But I just love it. I mean, I almost prefer it. And Neil Young's guitar playing, I kind of prefer that, or often prefer that slightly unskilled kind of all passion approach. Like Dinosaur Jr., I love Jay Mascis's guitar playing. It just conveys exactly what they want to do, whether the notes are the right ones or not. Really.
Yeah, it's like the term it's like a vibes first approach. It's like it's all about the kind of feel and the vibe and the energy of it, rather than like the technicality of it. It's just like this the attitude of it.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I totally. I love it.
Yeah. Nice. Let's move into section 2 now, shall we? This is where I ask my guests for a songwriting tip. And as usual, we have lots of good songwriting advice in the first part, but I always like to ask for one particular songwriting tip. So what would your tip be for us today, Danny?
I think it depends where you are in whether you've written a million songs or you've written one. But I think it's completely valid, and I try and tell myself this. We were talking about the song "I'm in Love." I'm not going to tell anyone that all of their songs need to be true, or if you're going to tell a story, you can make up a story. Of course you can. And talking about Bruce, he does all the time. But I think that for me, the best songs, or the songs of mine that people love the most, are songs that are just true stories. And it's easy often because they tell themselves. You don't have to, there's something completely authentic about telling a story that happened to you. Everyone will be able to sort of identify with it. But equally, I think you can be quite obtuse within that. You can be quite avant-garde with it. But I think that I personally, I might be wrong, but I tend to avoid fiction. Um, Pure fiction. I think you can write a song from a book or a film that really chimes with you, but there's total authenticity in that. But I, I would avoid writing song words. Do you know what I mean? Just words that fill a gap. I don't think there's any point. You might as well just say la la la. Um, you'll find the words, you'll find the story, but it just truth, something that has some truth and authenticity in it is key. There's so many songs in the world. We really don't need another Obladi.
Mhm. Yeah,
But
yeah, definitely.
that can sound a bit preachy, but it doesn't have to be a great song. It doesn't have to be a big story. One of the songs that of our bands that people like the most is a song called Henry the Van, and it's just about the van that we used to drive around in. But it's like an analogy for bands and the silly things and whether it's all worth it. I think the song says, it's Henry. It's called Henry the Van. Henry, is this the end of the road? And it's equally about the band as it is about the engine, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
It's not a big story, but everyone gets it. But it can sound a bit preachy. I would just avoid, you know. I've had this conversation with people before, and it's another point in a way. But I would also that there's a real tendency or an attraction in trying to say huge universal things in songs.
Mm.
Everyone really wants to write the big song that's the first song at the wedding or the funeral. Stop. It doesn't matter. You're not every song you're going to write is Pancho and Lefty or Bohemian Rhapsody. Right? Johnny Be Good, man. I mean, if you can make people dance, it's just as big a deal as making someone laugh or cry. It doesn't need to be important. In fact, the less importance you place upon it, the less pressure you put yourself under, the chances are it'll be a better song for it.
Yeah, agree completely.
So
Um,
I think I'm saying go small or go home.
yeah, yeah. I like it. Um, yeah, no, that's good advice, Danny. And I think I always think when people talk about that, about wanting to write that big universal hit, it's like that's really hard to do in a vacuum. It's like you kind of people who often have those hits have probably written hundreds of thousands of songs about all sorts of stuff, and then it's like the one you might not expect is the one which then all of a sudden is like, oh, people took to that one, and that one became a thing. It's really hard to predict what's going to be in that song. Um,
Yeah, I
I was
mean,
gonna, sorry.
weirdly, I mentioned Warren Zevon earlier, and I think on his very last record, he knew that he was dying, and he wrote a song called "Keep Me in Your Heart for a While." Um, which is probably relevant to your work and your podcast and everything. It's a beautiful, beautiful song. It doesn't really say anything. It says basically when you're just at home and doing your stuff, think of me, and it's lovely. It
Mm,
doesn't say anything. It's not a huge statement, but it is a huge impact. It's a beautiful song.
yeah. That's it. Dylan's obviously, I mean, Dylan's a genius in so many ways, but one of the things I think Dylan does really well sometimes is just have that where it's like it's not a big thing. It's just a really simple thing, but it just feels so real and so authentic. And um, yeah, yeah. So, but that's a harder skill than it sounds, I think, isn't it? To think of something which is just real and just simple. Um,
Yeah, little things,
yeah.
little things, but they are the big things.
Mm.
Do you know what I mean? I mean, it weirdly. I was watching the trailer to the new Robbie Williams film. Have you seen
Oh
that?
yeah, yeah. Well, it's an ape, isn't it? Playing him.
Yeah. I mean, it looks like it's got every chance of being utter genius or
Mm.
terrible. I'm not sure, but it's really bold. And obviously, Angels is a huge song. It's a big, big, lighters in the air sort of song. but you can't really you can I think setting out, in your bedroom with your Japanese guitar to write an Angels is almost it's just taking away the fun for yourself. Write a small song. John
Yeah.
Pryan's a brilliant example of people who he writes really human little things, like his song in Spite of Ourselves. Do you know that song?
No, I don't know that actually.
I don't know uh, how watershed your listenership is, but it's a really funny. It's a duet that he sings with Iris Dement, who's written some of the most beautiful songs as well, little songs. A song called Our Town that she wrote. It's just utter genius. But his song "In Spite of Ourselves," it's a really, really lovely duet. Obviously sung by a couple who've been together for a long time. And she says, "He ain't got laid in a month of Sundays. I caught him once and he was sniffing my undies." Very good. And I would urge anyone who hasn't heard that song to. It's really moving. It's a really funny, lovely sort of description of sort of a long-term relationship. It's great. You can learn a lot from John Prine. I think he's says little things in a really lovely way, and it makes it all bigger.
Hi everyone, I'm Kath O'Neill, and back in May this year I was diagnosed with grade 4 stomach cancer. I'd heard of the Swan Song Project on the Chris Evans radio show, so I contacted Ben about writing a song to inspire my 10-year-old grandson Rufus to improve his confidence. Working on the song gave me a distraction from my cancer, which was what I really needed. The process didn't take long, about half a dozen sessions online with Ben. He put the song together with some music friends that he has, including Boff Whaley from Chumbawamba. The process was absolutely brilliant. I got so much fun from it. My family loved the song, including Rufus. Thanks for the memory, Ben. I'll never forget it.
Reach the sky, learn to fly.
Let's get into section 3 now, Sherry. I'm conscious of our time. So this is where I ask my guests for a song that's meaningful to them in some way relating to bereavement. And what I'll do here is I'll put the link to the song in the description, so anybody listening to this who doesn't know the song, you can pause us if you want to go listen to it and come back. But which song have you chosen for us for this section, Danny?
I've chosen a song called "The Poacher" by Ronnie Lane, and the people listening will know Ronnie Lane's music from he was in the Small Faces, and then he was in the Faces with Rod, and he wrote again really beautiful, fairly mundane, small songs that just tap into the romance of life in a really lovely way. They were from the East End of London, and after he left the Faces, he moved to the countryside, and as a lot of guys did from the sort of 60s when they made a few quid, and sort of lived this life where he clearly, had a sort of real swinging 60s sort of career and wanted to something simpler, and so he kind of started. He toured, and they toured in a big top, and he had all these circus caravans and everything, traveling around the country. It was a complete disaster, I think, financially, sadly for Ronnie Lane. Financially, it never really quite worked out. He was a real dreamer and wanted to do all these really romantic, wonderful things, regardless of the cost and the cost in many ways. But he certainly wrote some. I mean, I'm a bit of a softie, and his songs mean an awful lot to me. They're quite often pretty underwritten. There'll be like a verse and a chorus, and then a bit of noodling around, and then the same verse and a chorus. Not laboured at all, but just imbued with a really, really beautiful sort of freewheeling spirit. And the poacher is literally is a song about a poacher. Um, what are the lyrics? Um, Actually, let me just get the lyrics up because I'm going to read you them because they're really, really wonderful. Wait there one sec.
Yeah,
If I should close this, would it lose us? Oh, if not, I'll call you back. Wait there. I'm going to
yeah,
find them. You'll love
okay,
it.
yeah, yeah. I'm just going to
I should have done.
echo what Danny was saying about when I
I
was
should have
listening
done
to
this.
it. So I hadn't heard the song before until Danny sent it to me, and yeah, I was kind of like wondering where it was going to go, and it doesn't really go anywhere, does it? Which kind of is really
No,
nice
it
about it.
doesn't
Is
go
again,
anywhere.
I think that's going to be a big twist
Well, he
here.
says, yeah, no. The chorus is bring me fish with eyes of jewels and mirrors on their bodies. Bring them strong and bring them bigger than a newborn child. And then he sings this really beautiful, and it's about going to the river early in the morning and seeing a poacher, an old guy. He says, there stood this old timer for all the world's first poacher, his mind upon his tackle and these words upon his mind. But he says this really lovely verse where he says, I've no use for riches and I've no use for power. I've no use for a broken heart. I'll let this world go by. And again, like I said, it repeats half of the song. It's not, there's not an awful lot there. Um, but it's just a beautiful song. And I did, it's a song that means an awful lot to me in a few ways. It's a song that me and the kids, my kids, we had a camper van and we used to drive around in it. And Ronnie Lane was our kind of hero, really. And I think we were sort of chasing, pretending to be Ronnie Lane, really. And we'd all jump in the van and go to festivals or go on holiday and just go somewhere. And the poacher was the song that was our van song, really, and the kids loved it when they were young. It was just a really romantic period. Um, but I sang it at the funeral of one of I was going to say my parents' best friends, but he was my friend, and he was. Well, I've known him since I was 4 years old, and he's always been um, into fishing and stuff, but telling quite tall stories and funny stories. And he grew up around this area before it was particularly built up, and he had all these really funny kind of very old school, boys' own kind of stories, fun fairs and coconut shies and nicking apples from orchards, just real old school stuff. And he used to paint fish on like slate and stuff. It's the sort of guy who'd get a matchstick out and play a bit of blues on a guitar. But then if you asked him to play anything else, he did know the guitar, but he just had tricks, like a really funny, a throwback, really. He's an interesting guy. And he had swallows tattooed on his hands, and I was really always fascinated by him. I sort of thought he was just such a brilliant man. I think he came around our flat once. He used to come when he was retired. He used to give me a knock, and we'd go for a pint because the pub near me sells mild, which was a big thing for him. But I think he left a rabbit on our doorstep. Like skinned and everything. It's not the sort of thing that we would buy. It's sort of from a different era, really. But so to me, he's the poacher.
Yeah.
And I sang it at his funeral, and he wasn't like a parent figure at all, but he was quite an important figure in my life. Good guy.
Yeah.
Fred.
Fred.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fred. Yeah. Good guy. And I was honoured to sing it at his funeral.
Yeah. Oh, that's lovely, Danny. And it's so kind of like, the when we first started talking about it, and you're talking about songs that like, yeah, it's not got a clear narrative, it's just a kind of description of this guy. And then it's
Yeah.
like then when you talk about the person in your life who's like that, who's kind of it's against reality, isn't it? Where like not everything has a start, middle, and an end. Some things it's just, oh, there's this guy. These are some things he does. I like that. I don't know why. Maybe that, but there's just something about that. And it's really
Yeah,
nice to capture it and just be like, yeah, this is what it is. This is. You don't
well,
have to read too much into it. It's just
it's
a
a
description of something nice.
no, but it's a bit like a painting, isn't it? It's just a
Mm,
moment. It's just
yeah,
a really, and Ronnie Lane was great at that. A way of capturing kind of romantic moments in life that are just really simple and actually unremarkable. When I say unremarkable, I don't mean mundane. I mean not necessarily the sort of thing that you would remark on.
yeah,
But obviously, you can see the poacher, can't you? You can see him. You can see
yeah,
what it's like a hazy, slightly foggy morning, and there's this old boy poaching. It's wonderful. Love it. He also,
yeah.
Ronnie Lane wrote a really amazing song called Debris. You should have a listen to Debris. I think it's about his dad, but it's one of the best London songs of all time. The first line is I left, and I think debris. What he's referring to is the bomb sites. So where a building had been bombed, that the kids used to play on those bomb sites. Yeah, and so he said, I left you on the debris at the Sunday morning market. You were searching through the odds and ends. You were looking for. Love it.
Yeah, very nice. Yeah, I've not listened to a lot of him, so I'm looking forward to going back into some more now because yeah, that the poacher was beautiful. Yeah, good stuff. Well, thanks a lot for your
Yeah, yeah,
time.
it's a lovely song. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Thanks a lot
No,
for your
it's
time,
been a
Danny.
real pleasure. And
I've really enjoyed this. It's been a really good conversation, and yeah, I feel like we could go on all day.
no, it's been great.
Um, but yeah, thanks a lot, Danny. And you've got
Careful. I
so
will.
the new album, "You Are Not a Stranger Here," is out now. Again, I'll put all the links in the description to your website and everything on your social media so people can check it out. And you've also got a tour next
Lovely.
March. I see that
Yeah,
you're
yeah, we've
touring in
got
March.
lots of dates in March.
Yeah, including one
Yeah,
at
loads
the
of dates,
Brunel
all
Social Club,
over
which
the
is near
country.
me.
So
So yeah, good stuff. So yeah, I'll put all the links in the
come
description so
along.
people
Be
can come
great.
and check it out. Good stuff. All right, thanks a lot, Danny, and thanks for tuning in, everyone. I'll
That's
be back
lovely.
with another episode soon.